I consider myself an expert listener. I've spent all my life listening closely to things. It's how I walk through the world. But the process of going through this design has made me realize that there's a whole world of listening that I only now being introduced to. My name is Shane Murbeck. I am an acoustics and audio-visual consultant. I started as an electronic musician and then worked in recording studios. And then I went to grad school for architectural acoustics and landed in this field. How's everything going?
As blind people, we really focus a lot on sound. There's so much meaning in it, so much information. Sighted people might think that as blind people we hear sharper. I assure you that my hearing is no different than a sighted person's hearing, but we do pay a little more attention. I became blind in my sophomore year at UC Berkeley, and I tried not to acknowledge my blindness. And so for many years, I didn't learn the tools I really should have learned. And that's why I'm so passionate that newly blind people get a chance to do that earlier. The Lighthouse for the Blind is an amazing place where for 114 years, we've taught kids, working age adults, and grandparents all the tools that you need to be successful as a blind person. When we had the opportunity to expand, we wanted the place to be beautiful, not just visually, but also acoustically.
As acoustics consultants, we always like to say that every piece of architecture is always a multisensory design project. So you always have a tactile element, you always have a thermal element. If you're sighted, you have a visual element, and there's always an acoustics element to a building.
Some of it is classic acoustic engineering. We don't want to listen to environmental noise that's unnecessary. So that was the first thing we did, is just make sure that in all the key systems, when you close the door in the multi-purpose room, it doesn't chunk back and forth. When you have a kitchen, the machines there are quiet. Those were kind of first order questions we needed to solve.
One of the things I really like about this work is that you're always thinking of sound in a different context. So, you know, in some workspace design, you play a very functional role where, you know, you might just be specing how many layers of drywall are between the rooms. And so for a project like this, for the Lighthouse project, you know, we did do that as well, but we thought of sound in a much different way where it was kind of a primary sense of navigation and of understanding the space.
One of the most fascinating parts of the design process was to figure out floor plans and then do a test run where we actually took the floor plan and ran it in a computer simulation and listened to what that room would sound like before we picked up a hammer and built anything.
The Sound Lab is a way to do acoustic mock-ups, right? There's no method for mocking up acoustics on a small scale because when you're talking about architecture, to define the acoustics, you need to close the whole room. So the Arup Sound Lab is a 3D modeling space. It's a room that has a sphere of loudspeakers. Essentially what we do is either through a 3D recording process or a 3D computer modeling process, we get various pieces of acoustic data and we can simulate the immersive acoustics of that space. It was something that was developed for more of a performing arts type of space where we would, you know, listen to various detailed changes in the concert hall finishes or the shape of the room. But it's incredibly useful for this project because, you know, you can use it to predict those acoustic transitions. We recorded Chris's cane, so he virtually tapped through a number of different floor finishes and all sorts of different concentrations of acoustic treatment to dial in exactly what eventually got installed.
To be able to say, this is the kind of sound I want, and then tune a room to the acoustic aural quality, that was extraordinary. We would just try different things. Let's see what carpet would sound like. Let's see if we had more people in here.
One of the things that they wanted was a sense of direction that would lead you to the reception desk. The elevator lobby is very reverberant, and then you walk across a concrete circulation zone, and as you cross the threshold, there's a canopy of sound-absorbing treatment, so the space really kind of closes in, and that's so you can hear the receptionist greet you and say hello. These acoustic wayfinding elements can be critically helpful to the blind, but they're very beneficial to the sighted as well. We're taking this concept of acoustic transitions and acoustic zones and applying it to those spaces and see if we can't build up a more intuitive soundscape that helps everyone with wayfinding.
It's very satisfying to me. There's an echo in the hall, and then when I come here, it's more crisp And so I like that on the floor a lot.
As blind people, we love to hear the sound of people's footsteps. We love that. It tells us something about who's coming. And in a typical office, those halls would be carpet. We'd hear nothing. We wanted to hear those things. You come into the new LightHouse, and it is warm and playful. And it sort of says that blindness is a really different and interesting state of being human, but the old ideas of loss or tragedy or limitation have gone the way of the old building. And now it's time to celebrate and be inventive and connect.